Welcome to After the Nudge podcast. I'm Soledad O'Brien.
And I'm J.R. Smith.
So on this podcast, we chat with some of the nation's most outstanding grassroots organizations, all of whom received a grant, a nudge, from Toyota, and it was in the form of a $10,000 grant.
Today we have Demetrius D. Harris, who is also president and co-founder of Fly Compton. He literally teaches you how to fly. Welcome to Demetrius. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
It's so nice to have you on. So when you think of Compton, you think of a lot of things.
Yes.
But not necessarily like a place where they're going to train pilots and young people who are interested in aeronautics.
Right.
How did you get started?
Well, I became a pilot later in life. It was at the age of 40 when I boarded a commercial airliner.
Careful, later in life. All right, Demetrius.
It was at that age that I boarded an airliner, and for the first time in my entire life, I saw two African-American pilots were in the cockpit. And up until that point, I had never even seen one African-American pilot. So that visual just unlocked my motivation to want to become a pilot.
How old were you?
I was 40.
I see.
I was 40.
I thought you were
yes.
talking about being a little kid,
No.
but you were 40, and that was the first time you'd seen.
That was the first time I had seen a black pilot, and I'd been well traveled, throughout my career in politics and investments, but I just never seen it, and it didn't dawn on me until that moment that I had never seen one before. So, that visual just unlocked my motivation to want to do it, and so I enrolled in flight school 3 months after that incident. And I got all of my ratings within 11 months and began a career as a corporate charter pilot.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Like you said, your roots is from North Carolina.
I'm from North Carolina.
Aggie Pride.
I attended North Carolina A&T.
Okay, Aggie Pride. Just make sure we out here. We do.
We're going to need a moment for bonding, everybody. Just take 5.
So what's your background in Carolina and moving obviously across country to Compton? Like, how did you feel as though that the community was going to embrace, flying and teaching kids and teaching people how to fly?
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm originally from Wilson, North Carolina. I grew up on a farm, so, I was never exposed to things like this, becoming a pilot or anything like that. So it wasn't something that, I could believe that I could attain or even thought about going after. And so went to North Carolina A&T. My major was business finance. And then I moved to California to work in investments, then started working in politics for 15 years. And then it was during that time when I took that flight to see the African-American pilots. And so one of the things when I started working as a pilot was just realizing that there's just not a lot of Black and Latino people working in that field. In fact, less than 6% of the entire pilot workforce is African-American or Latino.
That right?
Yes.
Wow.
And so that was one of the things, I wanted to just try to do something to change that and just try to help, a couple of kids in the community to just be exposed and know that this is an opportunity. On top of that, the airline industry is really suffering from a pilot shortage right now. So they're offering all kinds of sign-on bonuses and scholarships and things like that for people to become pilots. And so what I did was, after I became a corporate pilot, realizing there's not a lot of us, I wanted to go and try and find more pilots that look like me, that come from the same background. And so obviously, where do you go find Black pilots? Compton, California, and Compton actually has an airport, which most people don't realize.
I did not realize,
Yes.
but now it makes a lot of sense that
Yes.
you're flying right out of Compton.
Yeah, it has a small municipal airport. And so I went there and I met other Black pilots who actually, a lot of them grew up in a program similar to Fly Compton when they were younger at Compton Airport. And so it's 7 of us as founders. 4 of the founders actually went through that program. And so we just kind of restarted a program that was existing back then that didn't exist any longer. And honestly, we just wanted to help a couple kids in the community. We had no idea the response that we were going to get from the community and the void that we were actually fulfilling. And so we just want to do 2 things, which is expose young Black and brown kids to the aviation industry, not even just to become pilots, but there's so many other jobs that you can have in the aviation industry, like being a mechanic, which is very important. The mechanics are like super important. Being a drone pilot, you can become a drone pilot at 16 years old and start earning money as a drone pilot. Engineering, air traffic control, all of those things we want to expose the kids to.
I'm so curious what makes somebody like see two black pilots and then go become a pilot? Like, it's one thing to say, wow, that's unusual, and then go about your day.
Well, that's about it. I mean, exposure is everything. You know, that's one of the things we want to try to do is make sure young black and brown kids see people that look like them. We go to career days at high schools, in the community college district in Los Angeles, because that visual actually makes a difference. When kids can see somebody that looks like them doing extraordinary things, it makes them want to do it as well.
What's the age demographic you work with as kids? Is there like a certain limit or?
Yeah, so we actually start training kids at 8 years old. So
Wait, what?
8 years old, yes.
Man.
To fly a plane?
Yes, we do. So we have our program is every other Saturday at Compton Airport. The kids come to the airport, they do a ground lesson in the classroom, they eat lunch, and then we actually take them up in the airplane just to get them acclimated to the look and feel of the horizon when you're in an airplane, the movements that it makes. And then we start actually fully training them at age 16 because you have to be 17 to get your pilot's license. And so when they reach the age of 16 or 17, those are the ones that we provide scholarships for to completely pay for their training to get their pilot license. And so up until this point, we've been operating for 3 years. We had our first fundraising gala just last week where we presented the kids that actually received their private pilot licenses through us because we actually paid for it. And so we had 6 kids that received the private pilot license, and then we had another 11 kids that had gotten to the point of soloing an airplane by themselves.
Wow.
So, what we're doing is working. We have that every other Saturday. It coincides with the school year. And then in the summer, we break the pilot classes and start doing workshops around engineering and drones and things of that nature.
Wow, that's amazing. You said the community's very supportive.
Yes.
Why? Were you surprised by that support?
I was very surprised. I didn't realize that, the void that we were feeling, because there's really not a lot of programs like this that expose young black and brown kids to aviation. So once we started and the word started to get out, we actually had started to get a lot of news coverage, both local and national. And we even had Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg found out about us and actually came to Compton Airport to visit us and see what we were doing. So once all of that coverage got out, we got donations from all across the country. We have students that come from Arizona, even as far as Chicago, Illinois, every 2 weeks to LA just to be part of our program because there's not a lot of programs that exist out there like this.
When you see kids who were maybe didn't even know they were going to be into this or wanted to be a pilot or whatever, and then you go from getting a license to actually being able to do it, that's got to give you some type of joy of thinking like, dang, if I was 16, 15, opposed to being 40, and fortunately you still, found an avenue to help.
Absolutely.
What is that feeling like when you look at those kids and they feel that self-confidence of being able to fly a plane?
That's actually one of the things that keeps me going or keeps us going with doing this because it is a lot of work. I know people that are not in the nonprofit industry don't realize how much work running a nonprofit is. And so on those days, sometimes you feel like, oh man, this is too much. Then you see the faces on the kids, when they come down from a plane, or a lot of kids have never even been in an airplane before, and they take that first flight and their faces just light up and they say, I know what I want to be for the rest of my life now. That's just a fulfilling thing for me to hear that, knowing that we're actually changing the trajectory of kids' lives. And also the parents, parents come up to me in tears, thanking us for this type of program because they just didn't have a way to expose their kid to it, even though they knew their child was interested in it, they didn't know how to do it. And then also the financial burden. It is very expensive to become a pilot. You're going to spend about $80,000 to $100,000 to become a commercial pilot to the point where you can work as a pilot. And so, a lot of people from our communities don't have that type of money. So the money that we raise from corporations is what we use to provide scholarships to actually pay for their training completely. And not only that, we make sure we make connections with a lot of airline companies so that when they're qualified, they actually have job interviews already lined up so they can go to work in the field.
Good for the companies, right? Because they
Absolutely.
need employees.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
a win-win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
What do you love about flying?
The freedom, the feeling of freedom. And, it's a totally different world up in the air than it is down here. You just feel free, you feel at peace. and it's very exhilarating to be able to manage the energy of a huge machine like that, you know, going 500 miles an hour in the air, you know. It's just a wonderful thing to do. And I know a lot of people are afraid of flying, but it's really the safest way to travel.
Everything you're describing, I'm like, oh gosh, managing a 500 mile an hour.
It is.
You're like,
It
yeah,
is very
nope.
exhilarating. Very exhilarating.
I had some teammates back in the day. They're actually twin brothers. They both played in the NBA, and they're both pilots. They both fly and everything else, and they continuously invited me. But for me, I was like, nah. Like, I'm gonna go fly with somebody on the commercial, but I ain't flying with you, bro. This ain't gonna happen.
Right.
But just to see that, like, just as you know, as a just like you were saying, to have two black men in the cockpit, I didn't see it before until I seen the two brothers doing it.
Right.
So to even as much as I travel now, I still can't recall ever seeing that.
Right.
So I can imagine the culture shock it is for even, like you say, 6% of the pilot business is African American or brown. So that number is so small. Where do, like, in the next, because it's been since 2015, how do you try to continuously increase those numbers and continuously increase corporations like Toyota to give those grants to fill the void of lack of better words in that brown community?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the corporate sponsorships are absolutely dire for us. Like I said, it costs so much to become a pilot. It really takes a lot of money to do so. The $10,000 grant that we got from Toyota actually went to help a couple of the kids who received their private pilot license. So that was a major win, and then a major thank you to Toyota for doing that. And so our major goal is to increase, within the next 5 years, our goal is to increase the number of black and brown pilots in the workforce by at least 5%.
Do you ever think about your legacy? Like, I think it's amazing that you've already had a bunch, from your experience of seeing two black pilots, you've now spawned a whole bunch of other dozen young people who are either pilots right now or on their way, to becoming pilots as a career.
Yes.
I mean,
it's surreal. I mean, like I said before, when we started this, we just wanted to help a couple of kids in the neighborhood. We had no idea that we'd have, up to 100 students right now that come every Saturday. And we still got another 100 students on the wait list. So, we're just waiting until we get more resources to be able to open it up to those kids as well. But, the response from the parents, from the community, and from the airline industry in general, has been overwhelming, and it's been such a joy to be a part of.
How can somebody help if they're like, oh, well, we could help you
Oh, yeah.
raise some money?
Well, we can always use money.
money.
And, people can go to our website, flycomptonfoundation.org. There's a donate button on there, and those funds go directly to scholarships to help kids receive their license and their certificates. Or you can find us on Instagram at FlyCompton as well.
Amazing. Demetrius, congratulations. What you're doing is incredible.
Great, thank you.
It's awesome.
And I look forward to you guys coming out and letting me fly you around one day.
Yes,
Sign me up.
I love to fly. I'm completely in.
Yeah,
I
good.
appreciate it.
Thanks
for joining us on the After the Nudge podcast. And thanks to all of you for watching as well. And as we like to say, never underestimate the power of a nudge. You've seen the amazing impact that's able to have. Thanks for joining us.